So imagine you're just sitting at a desk and somebody walks up and drops this massive, heavy stack of paper right in front of you. I mean, 2,000
Oh,
pages.
wow, yeah, just a massive thud on the desk.
Exactly. It lands with this loud, definitive thud, and this is an official, finalized legal discovery file. Now, normally, when a case is officially closed, there's this assumption that these pages contain a neat, cohesive story.
Right, a clear beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, exactly. But what happens when you actually sit down, open that file, completely bypass the media narrative, and just start reading the raw forensic data?
You quickly realize the official story is, well, it's completely incompatible with the hard evidence.
It really is.
It creates this massive dissonance. I mean, we naturally crave closure, especially in these massive high-profile cases like the Chris Watts murders.
Right, the public just wants a narrative tied up with a neat little bow.
Exactly. But the moment you look at the forensic extractions, you have the permanent digital fingerprints that get left behind, you see that the established timeline is just riddled with unexplainable fractures.
So for this deep dive, we are opening up that 2,000-page discovery file to strictly analyze the hard data.
Getting right into the weeds.
Exactly. And specifically, we're zeroing in on the digital footprint of his mistress, Nicole Kessinger. Because the official story, like the one that went on the legal record, is that Chris and Nicole met at work in early June 2018.
Right, at Tasman Geosciences.
Yeah. And the narrative claims the affair turned physical in late June and lasted roughly 2 months leading up to the murders in August.
Okay, let's unpack this because the data tells a totally different story.
It really does. I mean, that is the accepted lineal timeline. But the forensic extraction of Nicole Kessinger's phone, it just fundamentally shatters that entire foundation.
Because of what investigators found when they dug into the deleted files, right? Yes. When they pulled the deleted data from her device, they actually found search history for Chris Watts dating back to August 3, 2017.
Wait, August 2017.
Yeah.
But that is almost a full year before they supposedly even met.
A full year. And the data goes even further than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the software uncovered a search for his wife, Shanann Watts, on September 4th, 2017.
Wow.
And then there's another search for Shanann on January 7, 2018.
I mean, that's just wild.
Right. And this is all undisputed pre-affair data pulled straight from the official forensic review.
I mean, this is like finding a movie ticket stub in your pocket dated 6 months before the movie was even filmed.
That's exactly what it is.
It mathematically doesn't work. So when police see a timestamp that is 10 months earlier than the established timeline, how is that handled? Because I remember reading that somebody actually tried to pass this off as a typo.
Yeah, that's true. A record supervisor at the Frederick Police Department actually went on record calling that September 1, 2017 date a typo.
A typo? By a computer?
Right. They attempted to just write it off as human error in the report. But we have to understand how digital forensics actually work. I mean, a machine-generated extraction doesn't make typos.
Because it's not a person typing the dates in.
Exactly. When you hit delete on a search, the phone doesn't destroy the data. It just removes the visible map pointing to it.
Okay, so the file is still there in the background?
Yes. The software simply reconstructs that map and reads the system's internal clock. Calling a digital timestamp a typo is, frankly, technologically illiterate. The machine isn't typing anything, it's excavating an existing file.
Which is why the district attorney eventually had to step in and correct them, right?
Yeah, Weld County DA Michael Rourke explicitly overruled his own police department on that.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. He directly told reporters that the 2017 dates were absolutely not a typo. He confirmed they were hard verified data points pulled straight from the phone's unallocated space.
So the data is real.
The data is real. But the truly incredible part is that even as the DA confirmed the data was real, he openly admitted he couldn't explain why those searches were there.
That's just staggering. Because if the foundation of the timeline is entirely broken by those 2017 searches, then every single action that follows has to be viewed through a completely different lens.
Absolutely.
Because if she was aware of him and aware of his wife a full year prior to the official narrative, then the events of August 2018 aren't just the messy beginnings of a toxic affair.
No, they're not.
They represent a massive escalation.
Yeah, so let's look at the documented behavior leading right up to the crime to see what that escalation actually looks like in the data.
Right.
On August 4th, 2018, which is just 9 days before the murders, the forensic log shows Nichols spent over 2 hours in the middle of the night searching for wedding dresses.
2 hours.
Over 2 hours.
While simultaneously pushing him to leave his wife, even after he disclosed that Shanann was pregnant.
Yeah, it's intense. And the data gets significantly darker from there. In that same transitional period, the search history reveals a Google query for, quote, how to get rid of your wife.
I mean, that is a terrifying phrase to see in a forensic log just days before a wife actually vanishes.
It really is. And you have to juxtapose those digital searches with the real-world interactions that are logged in the file.
Okay, like what?
Well, while Shanann was away in North Carolina, the records document a 111-minute FaceTime call late one night between Chris and Nichols.
Almost 2 hours on FaceTime.
Yeah. And the specific visual detail noted in the discovery file, which is really odd, is that during this massive call, Chris was lying on a bare mattress with no sheets.
A bare mattress.
Yeah, just a bare mattress.
I mean, it paints this incredibly eerie picture. Like the house is already being dismantled. The life he had there is being stripped down to the studs while he's on the phone with the woman who's searching for wedding dresses.
It's very unsettling. But when detectives questioned Nichols about this specific nearly 2-hour call just days after the fact, she claimed she couldn't remember what they talked about.
Come on. You don't remember what you talked about for 2 hours? I have to push back on how this is usually framed.
Go ahead.
Because if you combine 2 hours of wedding dress searches, a search for how to get rid of your wife, and a 111-minute unexplained late-night call on a bare mattress, is it really plausible to write this off as just the hyper-fixated search history of someone in a messy romance?
It's a fair question.
Or are these digital breadcrumbs indicating a much deeper awareness of the physical reality that was unfolding?
And that is the core analytical question of this entire case. Because if you know what you are participating in is escalating rapidly, your first instinct when the police show up isn't to be fully transparent.
No, it's to purge everything.
Exactly. It's to purge. The suspicious behavior prior to the crime logically transitions into this frantic digital cleanup immediately following the murders.
Right. So the day after the murders become public knowledge, so this is August 14th, she's back on Google. What is the actual data showing us she's focused on that day?
Well, the extraction shows searches for things like, can cops trace text messages? And how long do cell phone companies keep text messages?
That does not look good.
No, it doesn't. And then the search pattern makes a very specific pivot toward Amber Frey.
Wait, Amber Frey, the mistress from the Scott Peterson case.
Exact same one, yeah.
But what exactly is she looking up about her? I mean, is she just reading about the history of a similar true crime case to see what happened?
Not at all. The queries are highly specific to public perception and, oddly enough, financial gain.
Financial gain.
Yeah, she searches, do people hate Amber Frey? She investigates Amber Frey's book deal, and she specifically searches for her net worth.
Wait. The day after an entire family disappears, her digital footprint is focused on message tracing, whether the public will hate her, and the financial upside of being an infamous mistress.
That is exactly what the data reflects.
That is just mind-blowing.
It is. And knowing that police are likely going to be involved very soon, she initiates a mass deletion sequence before voluntarily handing her device over to investigators.
Right, she didn't just give it to them as is.
No, she manually deletes hundreds of text messages with Chris. She deletes photographs.
Yeah.
She completely wipes his contact information from the phone entirely.
So she basically hands the police a sanitized device.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that this is where we see the absolute danger of raw data being misinterpreted without context.
How so?
Because she provided the phone voluntarily, the investigator's guard was seemingly lowered. They kind of just leaned into a highly misleading statistic to make her device look cooperative. The official report actually notes that her phone had only 12 audio recordings on it.
Just 12 audio files. Okay.
Yeah, and they compared this to Shanann's phone, which had over 700 audio recordings, and Chris's personal phone, which had over 140.
So she had way less.
Right. Because her raw count was so low, some investigators cited this as evidence that her phone was oddly clean.
But hold on, wouldn't an oddly clean phone in the middle of a double homicide investigation make you more suspicious?
You would think so, right?
Yeah. Why would they view a lack of data as a sign of innocence? I mean, if I hand you an empty phone the day my boyfriend's family vanishes, you don't thank me for being tidy, you ask where the data went.
Exactly. You're touching on a fundamental failure of investigative logic here. That metric of 12 audio recordings Doesn't even describe what the recordings were.
Like, were they voice notes or just ringtones?
Exactly. Whether they were voice memos, downloaded songs, system ringtones, who knows? Without knowing the actual content, the raw count is completely meaningless.
Right. Most people who don't use voice memos probably have zero audio recordings.
Precisely. They used a junk metric to paint a picture of a clean phone, all while completely minimizing the fact that she had manually deleted crucial text messages and wiped his contact info.
It is just baffling. They focus on an irrelevant audio file count, while the 2017 searches for his wife are literally sitting right there in the unallocated space.
That's right there.
That deliberate scrubbing of the device naturally forces us to look at how the investigators actually handled the broader physical and digital evidence.
Because the investigation itself suffered from profound systemic blind spots, like massive ones.
Where did it start to go wrong?
Well, the first and most devastating failure was the initial response. They waited 2 full days before conducting a proper, rigorous search of the Watts house.
2 full days, but her friend reported her missing almost immediately.
Yeah, Shanann's friend essentially begged for a welfare check that first day.
And a delay like that in those first 48 hours is just catastrophic for preserving evidence.
Absolutely catastrophic, because it leads directly to the second major blind spot, the failure to lock down the crime scene.
Because they waited.
Right. By waiting 2 days to treat the house as a potential primary scene, Chris was allowed unrestricted access.
Oh, man.
He stayed in the house. He had the opportunity to wash evidence, move items, and totally sanitize the environment after the initial police contact. The chain of custody for the physical space was completely compromised.
That lack of immediate control must have severely limited what the forensics team could actually test once they finally did get in there.
It did. Which brings us to the shocking lack of physical forensic testing.
What didn't they test?
Despite the horrific nature of the crime, they never performed DNA testing on the swabs taken from the girls' necks.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And they didn't test the swabs from Shanann's hands or fingernails either, despite explicit requests from some involved to do so.
I can't even wrap my head around that. How do you recover bodies from that kind of environment and not test the victim's hands for defensive DNA? That's like forensic science 101.
It is, and it gets worse. When the bodies were recovered from the oil tanks, there's absolutely no mention in the discovery files of secondary fingerprinting or touch DNA testing on the hatches or the surrounding environment.
Gun.
None. The physical forensic net was cast incredibly narrow.
It sounds like severe tunnel vision. I mean, they locked in on Chris so early, which, yes, obviously he was the perpetrator, but by hyper-focusing solely on him, they completely dropped the ball on securing peripheral data or investigating anyone in his immediate orbit.
Yes, which is glaringly obvious in how they handled Nicole Kessinger legally.
Right.
They essentially treated her as a cooperative witness rather than a potential person of interest.
Just because she came in on her own.
Exactly. They accepted her narrative at face value regarding the timeline of the affair, even as those 2017 searches were literally being pulled from her extraction data.
And because she surrendered her phone voluntarily, they never took the next legal step.
Exactly. They never applied for a search warrant for her device.
Which is a huge distinction, right?
Massive. When you rely on a voluntary surrender, you're often limited to what is physically on the device at that exact moment. A warrant, however, allows investigators to go to the cellular carriers to pull complete, undeleted metadata logs.
Ah, so they could have seen the actual texts.
Right. It allows them to subpoena cloud backups. They saw she had deleted a massive amount of data, and instead of using that as probable cause to dig deeper with a warrant, they just accepted the sanitized version.
So what does this all mean? We have a woman searching for a man a year before she claims to have met him. We have middle-of-the-night searches for wedding dresses right before a family is annihilated.
Right.
We have frantic Google queries about text message tracing and the financial value of a book deal. And we have an investigative team that just fails to test DNA and doesn't even bother to get a warrant for the mistress's cloud data. Why didn't anyone in authority put the brakes on this and demand answers?
Well, because of the legal mechanism that ultimately concluded the case.
The plea deal.
The rapid plea deal. Chris pled guilty in November, just 3 months after the August murders.
3 months is incredibly fast.
It is. There was no trial, no full public airing of the evidence, no cross-examination of the timeline, and definitely no defense attorneys poking holes in these forensic anomalies.
So the moment he says, I did it, the system just turns the lights off.
You have to look at the structural reality of the justice system. A plea deal is designed for judicial efficiency. It saves the state an enormous amount of time, resources, and millions of dollars.
Sure.
But the consequence of that efficiency is that the moment the ink is dry on a confession, the investigative momentum just dies.
It stops cold.
The forensic budgets freeze, the pending subpoenas are canceled, everything halts.
So the unanswered questions in the discovery file, like those 2017 searches, are just permanently sealed in amber.
Exactly. The detective's job is to find the truth, but a prosecutor's job is to secure a conviction.
Right.
Once the prosecutor has the conviction, the system no longer requires the truth to be fully cohesive. The glaring contradictions between the hard data and the official narrative are simply filed away in a 2,000-page document that the public is frankly never expected to read.
And that is the ultimate value of bypassing the television documentaries and looking strictly at the primary documents. When you read the raw data, you realize the story you were sold is mathematically impossible.
It really is.
It forces you to realize that a closed case doesn't necessarily mean a solved case.
It leaves us with a profound structural contradiction to consider, too. I mean, we operate under this assumption that the criminal justice system is fundamentally designed to uncover the complete objective truth.
But is it?
Right. If a rapid plea deal can legally halt an investigation, if it can seal away unexamined digital forensics, and if it can leave massive, documented timeline fractures completely unexplained forever, we really have to ask who that efficiency actually serves.
Wow.
Does a system that prioritizes a rapid conviction over forensic clarity truly serve the victims? Or does it merely serve itself?
It brings you right back to that massive stack of paper sitting on the desk. 2,000 pages, it might be finalized, it might be legally closed. But when you look at the raw data, you realize just how much of the story remains completely buried.